do not have my own footage because I was late to the party. Essentially, we were given access to Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which launches on April 24. I had access to roughly 5 to 6 hours of gameplay, which translates to the first two quote-unquote levels of the game. We'll talk about the game design and level pacing in a while, but man, I just wish that the game was already here. There's just so much good to talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So to start, Expedition 33, it's a turn-based RPG based on a dark fantasy French Belle Epoque era that has you, the expedition, use your last year alive to try to stop the Paintress, a mysterious entity that every year paints an age. This age, and everyone that belongs into that number, they disappear. So it is your turn now, the Expedition 33. It is your journey. Here you will see the previous expeditions, often just corpses, but also what they achieved and what they did, the obstacles that they had to overcome, and the answers that they left moving on the next expeditions that would follow after, to have an extra edge when the time comes. And here's where I like to make a brief parenthesis. It is such a powerful sentiment to which comes after you journey to try to stop something that could often be perceived and fathomed as a godlike presence, hoping you will, for humanity depends on you, but to be chased as well by the thought that when you die at any given time, because you're no hero, you're just trying to survive, and if your death serves them that come after you, you serve a good purpose, for even if you do not see that dream come true, you're still helping others to see it. It's a romantic and depressive thought that pervades every angle, line, and voice in the narrative, not only as something that you can perceive by being omniscient, but the physical portrayed voices that the characters present to you. If you're not aware, big, and I mean really big shots from different media industries are here, giving life to the main characters. You have Andy Serkis from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Ben Starr from Final Fantasy XVI, Charlie Cox from Daredevil, Jennifer English from Baldur's Gate 3, everyone's girlfriend favorite, Shadowheart, and many, many more. I cannot praise enough how they understand their craft as voice actors and actors on itself, and they are just able to convey that precise sentiment of despair that Clair Obscur embraces as an overall aura. And the aesthetics of the game, oh dear heavens. Picture a somber painting that's shouting deep colors, shallow from the gloom around them. You can see the saturation and the vibrancy, something that's trying to shine, something that's trying to be alive, to try to get some gasp of air. It wants to be there, it wants to explode in front of you, but the Obscur is pushing it down. Still there, present. A perfect contrast of this continuance, for sometimes you have those right explosive colors, but also the overall structure seems off. The architecture, something is just not right because you are in the Paintress realm now, and the logic of our world does not follow that of the Paintress. The second level you enter is below the sea, and you can walk like if you were on ground, but you can also see the ocean sky and the marine wildlife, the whales, beautifully animated, by the way. Now I want for you to listen to this. And yes, all throughout the rendition of my playtime, the music was as good as this. And they know it's good, because sometimes you are just walking to those very cliché vistas of graphical wonders following this accent of such music to blow your mind away. And I'm trying to be brief in here, trust me, believe you me, because all that said, I want to take my time to talk about the actual game. I know that a lot of people are intrigued on what is this, how does it play, the combo and the active input system on a turn-based game. Is that a chore or is that actually good? Remember that this is a preview that I played, one where I did have some concerns that were later addressed by me experimenting and such. You know, in this channel we love that the little intricacies, we love to push the boundaries of what we can do and the play styles that we can adopt in several different RPGs, so that we can tailor the experience to our very own savory flavor. So let's actually talk about the main characters that I had access to, because they are the character classes. We have first Gustav, Loon, and Melee, or Male, I don't remember. Gustav, character class, uses a sword and a pistol. He was like a support and self-healing character, kind of like a captain. Each character has some kind of specific trait, specific to them. This trait changes the playstyle. This trait will always accompany the class regardless of build, and will differentiate them from one another. Gustav has this electric gauntlet that feels each time a meter, each time that you perform a combo or you deal damage with the sword. It's maxed out. Whenever you max it out, you release this high damaging finisher. And here's where build crafting comes into play, because you can use several buffs and debuffs to furthermore increase the damage of this attack. There's one that marks the enemy, and the next damage they receive it's increased by 50%, but that means that you can use the rest of your characters to attack, because that debuff is going to be lost, and you want to wait until this Gustav's next turn to attack if you want to maximize that damage, because that's the one attack that I noticed that it was the most powerful out of all my characters, and it could reach like 10k damage, provided that you set it up properly. Loon is your mage, sorceresses. She wields elemental powers that can take advantage of the enemy's elemental weaknesses, provided you know them. And I didn't mention that your skills require, like many turn-based RPGs, action points. They vary depending on the type of attack that you want to perform, which, with certain combinations that are somewhat difficult to learn, understand, and to perform if you not pay attention for her class, she can bypass a lot of that, like a lot of the skill points that you require, and increase the damage of her spells if you use a special resource she gets every time she attacks. And the combinations are naturally huge, because they depend on what kind of skills you use to access this new powerful combo because of this extra resource that she gets. And then we have Mael, a very versatile character. She was my main damage dealer, and her trait was the usage of stances that either give you more damage to receive equally more damage, or less damage to deal equally less damage. Depending on your stance and the attack, the character becomes a stance situation that can be used to furthermore increase the damage if you have been debuffing and stuff with the rest of the crew, and at the same time, if you're not in the correct stance, whenever you have prepared an enemy, then yeah, your choices are going to be somewhat of a consequence if you're not playing properly. You pair this up with Gustav's Gauntlet, and you have to be very mindful on when does someone attack and when. The overall game progression follows checkpoints very similar to Souls-likes, where if you rest, all of the enemies reappear, and you have to go through the area again. But being a turn-based game, it's easier to run past enemies if you do not want to fight them, and usually the bonfires are just outside bosses, so there really is not much more to do run pasting other than like not farming the enemies, and you don't really need to farm enemies in here. There's just more than enough experience if you kill what you're supposed to be killing. The game progression layout follows you entering into semi-open exploring areas that visually, as previously mentioned, stunning. You continue the story, explore, fight bosses, and go back to a very JRPG-esque overworld where you can decide where to go next. And if what's going to block your progression in a very JRPG-esque style, that will require for you to gather something from somewhere or somewhere that you can now access because of the previously blocked area. Character builds are very much going to be something very cool and interesting, for this is actually what affected my gameplay style and where I wanted to get with my main concern. You can level up stats, but also weapons that have traits akin to specific skills or features of the weapon, and elemental weaknesses, so on and so forth. But you can also apply pictos to your characters. There are perks that enhance more numerical values of builds, more damage, healing when conditions are met, more skill points when conditions are met, and etc. Your characters can also learn them if you use them enough so that you can keep them whenever you want to remove them from your main character. Think of them like they function as an accessory. If you use that accessory long enough, then your character natively can learn them and equip a different kind of accessory. Now here's the question. who is this type of game addressed for? Is this some more ARPG action-like gamers are going to feel like this is just too slow for them? Or are the turn-based lovers going to shy away from having to rely on button presses, mid-combos to potentialize their damage and also to avoid damage? Because let me tell you, if you're skilled enough, you can quite literally no damage anything that the game throws at you to the point where builds are no longer going to matter, and you will be able to destroy anything if you know how to dodge and parry properly. But yes, dodges and parries are tight, and they feel Souls-likey. Surgical precision requires on your dodges and your parries to avoid damage and retaliate, and you never receive cheap damage nor anything, like if you dodge, you dodge. You parry. There is no damage at all to your characters. Tempo, rhythm, cadence plays a part in here because some attacks are fast, sometimes they're slow, other ones are just too slow. You know what I mean if you played Elden Ring. So it's difficult to pinpoint where and when to dodge. But if you learn the monsters, then you're good. So from a player that loves action games and Souls-likes, I loved it. I was enamored by it. There were a couple of bosses in this preview that had quite literally messages from developers: this is not for you yet, but you can try. And no matter the attack, they one-shotted me. Even my whole party, with some specific attacks that they have, they were meant to be fought later on whenever your characters had more level, so you weren't supposed to fight them at that time. But with enough dedication, I beat them both, because they require for you not to make a single mistake, and it felt just as rewardless as fighting those very, very difficult bosses once you manage to defeat them, because you use skill, not numbers, to beat them. And then I thought maybe this is leaning too much into that kind of approach, so I went back to a level and I fought everything without dodging, no parrying at all. Played like an OG regular TB RPG, taking the damage, managing the skills, healing abilities, build synergies from Pictos, synergies from skills on itself, and such. At that time I already had a pretty established build on all my characters, and it was possible, it was doable. I could fight anything, even bosses, relying solely on that. So on the action kind of side, I can fairly say that I'm 80% sure that you're going to love the whole game at launch if, and this is a huge if, monsters' designs keep changing on tempo, cadence, rhythm, enough so that the enemy variety is enough for you to keep learning and keep engaged into that kind of playstyle. Now on the TV RPG, I can tell you that the whole preview that I played could be played without having to require to inhuman reflexes and pattern memorization skills, just as an OG regular turn-based enjoyer, like a regular turn-based RPG. I didn't have any major issues by adopting that kind of playstyle. That much was true. Aside from those two optional bosses that were not meant to be fought because, like I mentioned, they just one-shotted you, so it required for you not to make any mistakes and to dodge everything that they threw at you. But aside from that, from start to finish, it was with a solid build and legit understanding of TB RPGs. Like if you know your regular TB RPGs, your turn-based RPGs, you could go through the entire preview just fine by learning how to use your builds, your pick throws, your skill synergies and such. But that's something that I cannot promise for the rest of the game, because I have not played the rest of the game. But overall, I just love it. And if I had that information, I could see myself recommending it as a day one purchase to any type of player playstyle, regardless of skill ceiling, playstyle preferences, and such. This is a game that could definitely appeal to a lot of gamers, to take them out of their comfort zone and make them love the game just because of how well built it is. If you like the content, like and never super appreciate it, not only that you're a gorgeous, beautiful person, you are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful, beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join Discord, have a beautiful day, goodbye.